My number one favorite lesson from the best-selling book Atomic Habits. Forget goals, focus on systems. Our natural tendency when we want to achieve something in our lives is to immediately focus on the goal. I want to have $1 million in my investment portfolio. I want to lose 20 pounds. I want to have an amazing relationship with my spouse. However, here's a harsh truth that many, especially those that don't achieve their goals, do not want to hear. Those that achieve their goals and those that do not all have the same goals. Every investor wants to build wealth. Every health-conscious person wants to have ripped abs. And every married couple wants to have an amazing relationship. But do you want to know what separates those who succeed from those who don't? Their systems. A system that makes the desired outcome inevitable. James Clear says in his book clearly, you do not rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. Thus, instead of setting some arbitrary goal of investing more money or losing more weight, focus on a system that automatically leads to your desired outcome. Create a system of automatically investing 10% of your paycheck into your 401k every pay period. Create a system of drinking only water at home by removing all sugar beverages from your refrigerator. And create a system of having a date night with your spouse every Thursday night, rain or shine, so you're automatically investing in your relationship. Now, you must also be mentally and emotionally present with your spouse during your date night, or it defeats the whole process, but you get the point. When you focus on building a system that automatically leads to your desired outcome, what you will notice with time is that without you even needing to think about it, your net worth will grow, your waistline will shrink, and your marriage will thrive. And all because you systematized it. My number two favorite lesson from Atomic Habits. You want to shape better habits? First, edit your identity. Essentially how you look at yourself. Again, when we first attempt to shape our habits, we focus on the outcome, what we want to achieve. However, a powerful starting point that many of us don't realize is our identity, our belief about ourselves. Because even if we want to save more money or lose more weight, if we don't first address our identity, we'll always hit a roadblock. For example, let's say that we desire to save and invest more money. However, what if we continue to see ourselves as someone who is not good with money, who doesn't know how to track our spending, as someone who will never be good with investing and money? Then unfortunately, we will continue to fail because we never address our core issue of identity. However, when we can shift our identity, just like systems, it will naturally lead to powerful outcomes. James Clear tells the story of a friend who lost over 100 pounds by consistently asking herself, what would a healthy person do? All day long, she used this question as a guide. She figured if she acted like a healthy person long enough, eventually she would become that person. And she was right. In the same way, if you want to get better with money, ask yourself, what would a financially responsible person do? And behave according to what a financially responsible person would do. And what you'll notice is that it will also have a compounding effect. Each action towards the type of person you want to become, a financially responsible person, is like a vote for that person. You reinforce the identity of someone who is good with money, who is intentional with money. And you know what happens over time? You eventually become that person. Becoming the best version of yourself requires you to continuously edit your beliefs and upgrade and expand your identity. Number three favorite lesson from Atomic Habits. Another powerful activity to jumpstart a better habit. Fight for clarity. If you're serious about building good habits, having clarity is not a nice to have. It is a must to have. The reason? One of the biggest reasons people fail with financial habits is not lack of motivation, it's lack of clarity. Clarity on exactly what they need to be doing, where they need to be doing it, and at what time. Thus, what does James Clear recommend? He says to specify, to clarify. If you want to get into the habit of doing something, specify the exact activity, the exact time, and the exact location. For me personally, I find this very helpful with exercising. Instead of saying this week, I'll exercise 3 times, I put into my Google Calendar exactly when I'll be working out, what specific exercise I'll be doing, and where I'll be doing it at. It could be as simple as I'm going to do 10 sets of push-ups this Monday from 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. in my living room. The specificity gives me absolute clarity on what I need to be doing and at what time. Thus, when the moment of action comes, I don't have to think. I don't have to decide what I'm going to be doing. I just act. So if you want to give healthy habits a better chance at implementation, fight for clarity so that healthy habits move from just wishful thinking to an actual habit. The goal is to make the time and location so obvious that with enough repetition, you get an urge to do the right thing at the right time. Alright, so before we get into the next lesson, let me talk briefly about a free gift I want to share with you. Just like how habits require us to continue to repeat them, when we want knowledge to stick to our brain, we need to continually review them. Therefore, in order to help you better digest all the information I'm sharing with you in this video, I've organized all of them into this free PDF. Think of it as a quick reference guide whenever you're looking to remember all the habit building lessons from this book. You can download it for free using the link in the description below. Just a little thank you from me for spending your precious time consuming my content. Alright, with that, let's get back to the video. Number 4 favorite lesson from Atomic Habits. Having a hard time getting started? Start small. And if need be, ridiculously small. This might be the most practical lesson in the entire book. Essentially, you want to shrink your habits so much that it is impossible to say no. Instead of saying I'm going to read a whole book, say I'm going to just read one page. Instead of saying I'm going to invest $10,000, start with just $1. Instead of saying I'm going to complete a whole workout today, start with just doing one push-up. Now you might think, if it is so small, will it make much of a difference? Well, initially, no, of course. However, if you do these small things every single day and you do it for a long enough time, they can and will have a tremendous impact. James Clear uses the example of airplane navigation to show how small changes can have a huge impact. Imagine you're flying from Los Angeles to New York City. If a pilot leaving LAX adjusts a heading just 3.5 degrees south, you'll land in Washington, D.C. instead of New York. Such a small change is barely noticeable at takeoff. The nose of the airplane moves just a few feet, but when magnified across the entire United States, you end up hundreds of miles apart. So don't discount the small. $1 invested today will not seem like much, but if you do it often enough and long enough, it can and will have a tremendous impact. But do you know what else is interesting when you focus on the small? Once you've read that one page, or invested that $1, or done the one push-up, most often you find yourself wanting to go to the next step. Reading the second page, investing another $1, and actually completing that workout. Habits are the compound interest of self-improvement. The same way that money multiplies through compound interest, the effects of your habits multiply as you repeat them. Number 5 favorite lesson from Atomic Habits. Another way to make starting a habit easier. Make it attractive. Why? Because we're more likely to repeat a behavior when the experience is satisfying and attractive. I mean, why do so many of you keep tuning into my boring videos every week? It's definitely not to hear me go on and on about boring index funds. No, it is because you're mesmerized by my ridiculously stunning hair. You just can't help yourself but click to watch whenever you see my riveting hair on the video thumbnail. But enough about the hair. Today, you came here for the habits. So when it comes to habits, how can we make them more attractive? There are a couple strategies that James recommends. One, by implementing a powerful strategy called temptation bundling. Pairing an action you want to do with an action you need to do. For example, James Clear talks about an engineering student who wanted to watch Netflix, but knew he should exercise more. So he hacked the stationary bike to only allow Netflix to play when he was cycling at a certain speed. If he slowed down, the show would pause. He bundled watching Netflix, what he wanted, with riding his bike, what he needed. The second strategy is shift your mindset about the habit itself. Instead of thinking, I have to check my spending, think, I get to take control of my financial future. Instead of saying I have to invest in my 401k, say I get to invest in my freedom. This simple shift from have to get to transforms a habit from a burden into an opportunity. From the negative to the positive, which in itself makes this behavior attractive. The more attractive an opportunity, the more likely it is to become habit forming. Number 6 favorite lesson from Atomic Habits. Another reframing to help you sustain your habit. Just get your reps in. In the book, James Clear talks about a professor who divided his film photography students into 2 groups. One group would focus on quality. They would be graded only on the excellence of their work. Thus, they would only need to produce one photo. The other group would focus on quantity. They would be graded only on the amount of work they produced. What was the result? At the end of the semester, the best photos were actually produced by the quantity group. Why? Because while the quality group spent the semester theorizing about perfection, the quantity group was busy taking photos, experimenting, and learning from their mistakes. In the process of creating hundreds of photos, they honed their skills. But not only their skills, they encoded a new habit. The truth is that when it comes to many habits we want to make in our lives, many of us never get around to taking action because we get so focused on figuring out the best approach. However, studies like this show that we have things backward. If we want to find the best approach, we must first take action. As Voltaire famously once wrote, the best is the enemy of the good. So instead of being paralyzed by analysis, trying to find the perfect portfolio or the optimal asset allocation, focus on consistently investing $1 a day. Instead of creating the perfect budget, focus on just tracking your expenses and be okay with missing some transactions. What matters is the fact that you're acting and you're putting in the reps. And that in turn will build the skills and embed the necessary habits. Number 7 favorite lesson from Atomic Habits. Want to take your habit building to the next level? Join a tribe. This is probably one of the most underrated, but the most powerful actions you can take. Because the truth is that when we're constantly surrounded by people living paycheck to paycheck, complaining about money and making impulse financial decisions, it's incredibly hard to stick to good financial habits. But when we surround ourselves with people who are intentional about money, investing regularly and building wealth, those behaviors naturally become normal. Actually, they become easy. And research backs this up. In the book, James Clear talks about how a person's chance of becoming obese increased by 57% if he or she had a friend who became obese. Those are some big numbers. So if you want to get better with money, survey your surroundings. Are you surrounded by people who celebrate every purchase, who talk about their latest expensive gadgets, who complain about being broke but never do anything about it? If so, you're fighting an uphill battle. But if you can find a tribe of people who celebrate hitting savings milestones, who get excited about investment opportunities, who talk about financial independence instead of their next purchase, those behaviors will naturally rub off on you. One of the most effective things you can do to build better habits is to join a culture where your desired behavior is the normal behavior. Number 8 favorite lesson from Atomic Habits. And this one is my personal favorite. Design your environment for success. Essentially, understand that your environment plays a huge role in your success or your failure. James shares a story of Anne Thorndike, a physician at Massachusetts General Hospital, who wanted to improve eating habits without changing anyone's willpower. So what did she do? She worked with the hospital to simply rearrange the hospital cafeteria, adding water option to all drink locations while keeping soda in the primary refrigerators. And the result? Over 3 months, soda sales dropped by 11%, while water sales increased by 26%. All this from just simply changing the environment. They didn't talk to anyone to change their behavior. It all just happened. And I personally find this to be quite powerful in changing my behavior, especially when it comes to eating healthier. We all find ourselves not at our best behavior late at night when we're all super tired. We open our pantry looking for the sugary snacks or that frozen pizza we can heat up. Well, what happens if the only snacks in your house are fruits, nuts, and water? Well, I guess I'm eating a banana, a bag of nuts, and a cup of water. The environment literally forced me to eat healthier when my willpower and motivation tapped out. So if you want to make a healthy lifestyle automatic, don't discount the role of your environment. It is the invisible hand that shapes your behavior, so design it intentionally for success. Environment design allows you to take back control and become the architect of your life. Number 9 favorite lesson from Atomic Habits. Want to allow your habits to take you to the next level? Aim for the Goldilocks zone. The Goldilocks rule states that humans experience peak motivation when working on tasks that are right on the edge of their current abilities. A simple way to think about this? Not too hard, not too easy, just right. James Clear illustrates this with Steve Martin's comedy career. Martin spent 18 years developing his act, 10 years spent learning, 4 years spent refining, and 4 years as a wild success. Each year, he expanded his comedy routine by just a minute or two. He was always adding new material while keeping a few guaranteed laughs. There were just enough victories to keep him motivated and just enough mistakes to keep him working hard. However, how many of us often find ourselves aiming for behaviors that are way too aggressive or sometimes way too easy? Then what happens? We either burn out or we get too easily bored. Either way, our motivation fizzles out and we stop moving forward. So if you want to maintain your motivation, aim for the Goldilocks zone. For example, if you're currently saving nothing, don't jump straight into saving 50% of your income. That is way too aggressive and you'll likely burn out within weeks. But don't just set a goal to save just $5 per month either. That's too easy and won't feel meaningful. Find something in between. And here's how to know if you're in the zone. If you're hitting your financial goals 100% of the time, they're probably too easy. If you're hitting them less than 60% of the time, they're probably too hard. Aim for that sweet spot where you're succeeding about 70 to 80% of the time. The Goldilocks rule states that humans experience peak motivation when working on tasks that are right on the edge of their current abilities. The number 10 and the final lesson is perhaps the most personal. Choose a habit that best suits you, not the one that is most popular. In all these talk about habits, it's easy to believe that we must learn to do everything and everything well. Save and invest my money regularly. Track my expenses down to the penny every month. Exercise 6 days a week. However, we're all different people, so not all habits will appeal to all of us. So don't feel the pressure to embrace all the habits. Instead, embrace those that work with your personality and natural tendencies. But most importantly, ones where you feel like you'll get the best bang for the buck. Scott Adams, the cartoonist behind Dilbert, said this: "Everyone has at least a few areas in which they could be the top 25% with some effort. In my case, I can draw better than most people, but I'm hardly an artist. And I'm not any funnier than the average stand-up comedian who never makes it big. But I'm funnier than most people." The magic is that few people can draw well and write jokes. It is the combination of those two that makes what I do so rare. The same principle applies to financial habits. Just because everyone talks about detailed asset allocation doesn't mean it's right for you. Just because someone else loves detailed budgeting spreadsheet doesn't mean that's your path to financial success. Maybe you are detail-oriented and love spreadsheets. Well, lean into that with comprehensive tracking and analysis. Or maybe you're motivated by automation and want to set everything up once and forget about it. In that case, lean into that. The key is honest self-assessment. What activities do you actually enjoy? What systems have you been able to maintain in other areas of your life? Because the truth is that the best habit is the one that you'll actually stick with for the long term. Thank you guys for watching the theme of habits. If you want to learn some wealth building habits, ones that actually work, please check out my video here. Until next time, all the best.